Virtual educational environments. The main trends in the use of modern digital technologies in higher education institutions. Authors Mariana Kovtoniuk, Olena Kosovets, Olena Soia and Lubov Tyutyu. 1. Introduction. Modern digital technologies have a significant impact on people and society. They change the way we think, perceive and act. The means and methods of communication, knowledge acquisition, formation and development of competencies are changing. The way we learn and teach is significantly influenced by technological progress, as technologies used for educational purposes are gradually improved and modified. The development of digital technologies leads to the improvement of forms and methods of interaction between participants in the educational process. Due to quarantine restrictions, the main priorities, which include the organization of the educational process regardless of the time and location of its participants, providing interactive work of students with educational content, adapting the learning process to individual characteristics, needs and characteristics of students, use of e-learning tools and services of wide practical significance. 2. Analysis of previous studies. Virtual educational environment is the subject of scientific research in domestic and foreign scientific works. In the works Trias, Herasimenko and Franchuk, Skurativska and Popadiuk, Falstinska, Kraselnik, Seidenberg, Scheffel, Kovanovich, Lynch and Draxler II, Ju, Park and Kim. The problem of application of virtual educational environment as a necessary component of educational process in higher school is investigated. Asadcha, Osadchi, Spirin and Krulik, Husak and Radzakovska, Hendrickson, Vestege, Vinkin and Diedron analyzed the features of teaching natural sciences and mathematics in higher education institutions with the help of virtual educational environments. 3. Research methods. The research used such theoretical methods as the analysis of philosophical, psychological and pedagogical literature on the problem of research to determine the conceptual and categorical apparatus and substantiate its theoretical foundations. Analysis, systematization and generalization of existing experience and publications on the issue under study in periodicals. Own experience in the use of virtual educational environments in higher education institutions. 4. Research results and discussion. The peculiarity of the training of a modern specialist is that the current student was formed in the information society and is able to obtain information from electronic resources. However, there is a great need to teach him to quickly search for the necessary information, process, assimilate and use it to understand the material. To this end, we see the effective use of the teacher's personal website in the learning process. The requirements for the site are consistent with the functions it must perform: informational, developmental, educational and managerial, and are subject to the triad: student right-pointing arrow textbook and, or site right-pointing arrow teacher. In this case, the role of the teacher is greatly enhanced, because it is here that the teacher teaches students to independently search, analyze and process new information. Therefore, the teacher's site must be integrated into the learning technology designed and implemented by the teacher. Then the logic and structure of the lesson will be an element of the teacher's creativity, and he is able to choose his own strategy and teaching methods, and not just follow the presentation of the material proposed by other authors. In conditions when the idea of personality-oriented learning, built on the innovative activities of the teacher, is fundamental in education, this approach, according to our research, is crucial. Using the capabilities of modern network technologies allows optimize and structure information according to criteria that are available to the user and will greatly facilitate the search for the necessary data, to introduce interactive means of interaction between the student and a certain structural unit of the general educational complex, which, in turn, allows to automate the following types of educational activities: testing, conducting the experiment in conditions close to laboratory, introduce interactive means of interaction between the student and teachers, for example, feedback forms, thematic forums on the resource platform, the ability to upload their files to the resource, enable a multi-level system of access to certain types of content and the ability to quickly attach levels of accessibility to the content of databases, video content, webinars, conferences. The e-textbook is an electronic version of textbooks on mathematical and functional analysis, Differential Equations, intended for use in teaching, contains 9 sections. All educational materials of the site are the intellectual property of the author and are published in textbooks and methodical developments. The site is publicly available, so it can also be used by students from many countries around the world who speak Ukrainian. Virtual learning environments are also elements of adaptation and modeling of student activities, as adaptive learning systems must build the educational strategy of the learner based on personalization. Usually personalization involves adaptive interaction, adaptive access to the course, adaptive content of educational material, adaptive support for cooperation. The virtual educational environment is created by means of LMS for the decision of tasks of administration, schedule management, placement of content that takes into account the educational characteristics of the student, different types of task tracking and student learning history to provide individualized learning. Thus, the main functions of the LMS are class organization, implementation of collaborative learning, attendance management and the availability of bulletin boards. LMS Collaborator has been introduced at Vinnytsia Mikhailo Kotsiabinski State Pedagogical University to organize distance learning for students. This is an internal university system of adaptive learning, which is accessed through pre-registration through the system administrator. The developers of LMS Collaborator note that this is a multifunctional platform for adaptation, training, certification and development of the company's staff with flexible integration capabilities. In Collaborator, the teacher works in 2 modes, tutor and user. In the tutor mode, study materials are added and students' knowledge is monitored. In the user mode, the teacher reviews the form in which the student will receive the sent theoretical material, practical tasks and tests. The virtual educational and methodical complex of the educational environment consists of instructional, informational, control, communication blocks and a control system that unites all this together. The combination of these blocks into a single virtual system provides the study of the discipline as a holistic process. In the reports, the teacher receives in graphical and percentage information on the development of theoretical teaching material in the discipline, a report on laboratory, practical activities of students in the group, a test report, a report on individual student achievement, student history, and a consolidated report. 5. Conclusions and recommendations. The ability of such a virtual educational environment to modify, change their parameters taking into account the needs of participants in the educational process contribute to the continuity of virtual learning, the disclosure and identification of individual creative abilities of students. The implementation of interactive forms and methods of learning, especially in the organization of independent learning activities in a virtual educational environment, is a significant factor in increasing motivation for learning activities, increasing the level of emotional perception of new material. In the virtual educational environment is a set of conditions that promote the process of active interaction between teachers and students through the focus on various types of independent work, including information educational, experimental research, scientific practical activities based on modern digital technologies. Thus, taking into account the described tasks, functions, advantages and disadvantages, prospects of the teacher's educational site and learning management system, we can conclude that these opportunities fully ensure the implementation of integrated virtual educational environment in the process of teaching higher education using modern digital technologies. Thanks for your attention.